Good day, good morning, good afternoon. It is John Summers, the motoring historian, and in a miracle of functional technology, we have Mark Newton and Mark Gammy all on the line with us. I have an agenda, but of course I'm not gonna stick to it here. Let's begin by saying hello to Mark Gammy, who unexpectedly joined us. Thank you, Mark, for making the effort.
No worries.
Gammy, great to
And
see you.
and hello to Mexican Mark Newton, who is
Hola.
joining us from. Where are you joining us from, Mark?
Todos Santos, BCS, Southern Baja, Mexico. Buenos dias, amigos.
I'm sure Mark Gammy, you're not aware. Mark, what are you driving now? What vehicles do you own in Mexico? What's sitting on the driveway at the moment?
Well, here you have a tendency to gear yourself towards things that actually work, that won't leave you stranded, that you can get parts for. We're not in the spoiled hub of California where we have access to everything within hours at our fingertips, regardless of what it is, what it's for, or how much it costs. So, um, 97 Ford F-250, heavy duty, power stroke diesel, 4-wheel drive, manual transmission, pre-runner off-road truck with a big utility bed. That's the number one girl on the list. And then I recently bought a Shortbus. Nothing more appropriate for the dog rescue than a, let's see, this one's an '01 E450 V10 ex Napa Valley wine country tour bus. And it's one of my favorite new vehicles I've ever had.
Why? Why?
I love it. I love the V10. I love it. I've never had one before, and I love it. Compared to my turbo diesel that I also love, it it just does what it's supposed to do. It makes a ton of horsepower, makes a ton of torque. The mileage isn't horrific. It's an E450, so I've I've spent my whole life towing with my F250 and working that thing to death for. I think I've put over 200,000 miles on that truck. Um, it's sitting at, I think we're 375,000 miles on that thing currently. Um, and it's probably got another 500,000 left in it. But when I bought the 450,
Nice.
being that it's a dually and that it's a heavy duty, 1.5-ish, let's say 2 ton, I put a trailer behind it. It doesn't even know it's there. It it just it does everything better than my F250, and I hate to say that.
You sent me a short where you were like, "This thing is absolutely the future," because you were like stood up in the back of it. And for context, we'll put a link for the viewers. But the idea is, Gammy, this is like your airport bus. This is like your airport like Hertz rental bus where you can stand up in it, right? But it's like so it's a short chassis, but it's like dual wheel heavy duty. So you're a fan of the V10. I thought that V10 didn't have a great reputation.
Dude, you know what? The guys that have them, that run them, that I have come across now, and I did my diligence before I bought this thing. I was trying to find a 5.4 truck, or something like that. My last van was a '96, so it was the last year of a pushrod 351, our good, that venerable 5.8 liter that we love so much, and I loved it. But I popped a head gasket on it, and I didn't feel like fixing it last trip to California, so I hunted around on Craigslist and found this van for $4,100. Paid $3,800 for it out the door. And the lovely part of them, because of what you said, Summers, they're like airport shuttle vans, handicap vans. They use them for a multitude of things. They're all fleet maintained, so kind of regardless of price, they've got new tires, good brakes, well serviced. Regardless of miles, they're great vehicles. So I jumped in it, welded a rack on the back, welded a trailer hitch on it, swung my car trailer off the back of it, and drove it 2,000 miles, to Mexico. So I love it. I'm convinced it's the greatest thing ever right now, or like I said to you, the greatest tool for me here. You know, um, I've usually got dogs in it. I had 12 dogs last trip, go to new homes in California. So I'm down to only 15 now, which is nice.
So
And they fit in the van.
pause. Let's just pause for the audience here who might not have grasped that. Just repeat what you just said. How many dogs and why do you have all these dogs?
I run a small dog rescue in Mexico called Baja Street Dogs. So BajaStreetDogs.org if you're online, or Baja Street Dogs on Instagram. It's just kind of something I do in Mexico to try to help out here, instead of just being a gringo that takes advantage of a cheap, wonderful country and, lives like a king. I work with the local kids with the dog rescue, try to educate these guys, run clinics. I never had kids or got married, so I'm Uncle Mark, and I'm a mechanic. So you need new tires in your bicycle or a chain for your bike, you go see Uncle Mark. Maybe the dogs chase you, maybe they don't. Maybe you get a tire, maybe you don't. But we're in Mexico. Nobody gets too wound up about anything here, It's like, yeah, whatever.
And just for some context, this is the bit of California. This is the bit of Mexico that they call Baja California, which is a long peninsula.
So John,
We still have you there now.
You basically have you have the northern state of Baja and the southern. So just Baja California, or Baja California Sur, south or lower. So we're BCS, California Sur. I'm a little over 900 miles from the California border right
now. And how wide's the peninsula?
At its widest point, we're barely over 100 miles.
So that's a peninsula that's 1,000 miles long and 100 miles wide.
Yes.
Yes. You sent me a short or a video or something of an off-road race that just came right past you. Just reprise that for Mark Gammy here.
Gammy, I'm coming home, so I've got a ranch about 10 miles north of town, a little dog rescue ranch. So I go out there and walk the dogs and take my composting dog poop out there and do the right thing with it and, smoke a joint and have some fun and just get out of town for a minute. Well, the NORA race got redirected and came through Todos Santos. So about 11 o'clock at night, I'm coming home in my van at 20 miles an hour, quiet, dirt, Mexican road. Nobody on it. Nobody. No street lights, no nothing. But I heard some cars earlier in the evening. I thought, they're all done. So I'm coming back on the highway, and there's people on the sides of the highway, bonfires going, still partying. I'm like, must be some trucks left out. So I look in my rearview mirror, and I see some awfully bright off-road lights coming up on me, but you can't tell how fast these lights are coming up on you. You have no idea. Well, he was doing north of 120 when he went by me. Miles an hour by you. And maybe a foot off me, 2 feet max, because we're on a narrow dirt Mexican highway. Needless to say, he blew my head off as he went by me, and I just chuckled and giggled as he went by me, peppering me with rocks and dust and dirt. That's why I live here, because that exists. It makes me giggle, not piss me off,
Mark, I called you on your birthday a couple of years ago, and I said, "What you doing?" And you said, "Oh, I'm up in LA at the moment. I'm buying WR 450s." And I said, "What?" And you went, "Well, about the biggest, meanest, most fuck off road motorcycle. I'm buying them." And I said, "How many have you got?" And you said 9. Now, why? Why the 9 bikes? What are you doing with the 9 bikes? Can you still have them?
Kind of the point I made, Summers, of you use what works here, you use what lasts here, you use what functions here the best, and you can get parts for. Yamaha. Hondas are good as well, but down here, for instance, our marine, the marine world around here. Obviously, we have the Sea of Cortez and the Pacific Ocean. We essentially sit on an island down here surrounded by water, so a lot of water activities. Everyone runs Yamahas, and I mean everyone. So I like the WR450s. They hold more oil than the CRS. They're more reliable. We can get parts for them. So I just kind of tackled mid 2000s aluminum frame, carbureted, good suspension, WR 450s, electric start, headlight, and keep everything the same so I can buy one set of parts and keep these things running. Because, we're running them in the Mexican desert, and this place isn't nice to anything. Oh. And yeah, we had basically a small rental business down here. I brought them down in January, right before COVID, set them all up. COVID hit, and that was that. Here I sit on a bunch of WR 450s. I'm down to 2. I've offed them all, and I'm down to 2 WR 450s, and I still have my XR 650R Honda Supermoto, which is really fun. That's my favorite bike of late. Oh, and I brought the Harley, the Shovelhead down, the old Suicide Shift bike down too. So,
Mark Gammy has been harboring some, I wouldn't say off-road fantasies, more sort of soft road desert riding fantasies. So talk to me about the riding conditions. What would it look like? What would if we're with you now in Todos and we're eager beaver to ride, we're hydrated, firstly, how good, I mean, I'm a shitty rider, as you know. Like, am I just going to fall off? Am I actually going to, is this an experience I'm going to be able to enjoy?
Well, Summers, if I could judge the future from the past and you on a dirt bike with gravel, I can almost guarantee you're going to grab a handful of front brake at least once and dump it. And I'll tell you, I teach a lot of guys how to ride down here. And coming from where you and I came from, whether you rode dirt or not, Northern California in general, we're generally used to riding single track, mountainous, tight, hilly, up, down. It's a very different environment to be on this very loose, decomposed granite, riverbed, sand, beach, gravel road down here. You don't touch the front brake. You don't steer with the front end. You do everything off the back wheel. And I mean everything. So you learn real fast if you don't. So when I had my rental bikes, I would get these kids from LA down here that had 2 years on a motorcycle on the street, and I would tell them, don't touch the front fucking brake, dude. Don't touch it. Forget it's there. I'll take the lever off if I have to. Don't touch it. And inevitably, I'd say at least 60% of them within 5 miles would, come into a gravel turn, touch the brake, and down they went, And luckily, they're low sides. It wouldn't hurt anybody real bad. Nobody was, it scared the shit out of them. Maybe they went into a cactus or into a barbed wire fence, but didn't kill anybody, So, but yeah, that once you get used
for
to
sure,
that,
that's something
once you get used.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, once you get used to that, Summers, that it's just a different style of riding. The other thing to remember is, at our respective ages, at 54, I'm not trying to do breakneck speeds through the desert. I'm trying to have some fun, end up at the beach at the taco shack, have a beer, kick back for a minute, and just enjoy the day. I mean, we have 8,000 foot peaks right here within within 30 miles. So I can ride from the beach to an 8,000 foot southern Sierra Nevada peak and back. So I can get every kind of terrain you can imagine for whoever wants to come ride and play. We're really blessed with the terrain down here. So
my thought was going to be I really would need to unlearn the whole. I only use the front brake. I mean, not for nothing. On most of my bikes, it's hard for me to get my foot over the rear brake to cover it properly. Anyway, so they would be, yeah, I would really need to discipline myself with that. That's interesting.
yeah, it just takes it. Luckily here, everything's pretty soft here. If you dump it in a riverbed, it's 8 inches deep of decomposed granite. It doesn't. If you dump it on the beach, it doesn't hurt you real bad. You're not going to break anything real bad. It's gonna scare you a little bit and teach you a very valuable lesson. I'll tell you, Gammy, I'm more into having you guys come down. I'll pick you up at the border in these 2 road race Mustangs we both own, and let's run this 1,000 miles. That's unbelievably beautiful, perfect, coast to coast, 2-lane, twisty, not a cop on it, no rules, no laws, no speed limits. No one cares. Have fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm bang up for that, man. I mean, in terms of training for the bikes, I did the BMW off-road skills course a few years ago and only badly injured myself at the end of day one. So that's a good omen. And I'm going to buy a CRF 250 rally probably just to get do some green laning around here just to get used to it and get my eye in with it again. Because yeah, you forget all of the stuff. But if I do a bit of winter riding and late summer riding, and then I'll be up for it probably by next year.
Yeah, I mean that's a great bike to actually. It's good you trained at BMW on those big heavy bikes, because you go jump on a nice, properly prepped 250, dude. It's like riding a really well prepped mountain bike. They're light, they're quick, they handle well, they do everything well. The brakes work. You know those big bikes. You don't ride those big bikes down here on the slippery, gravelly shit, dude. You end up trying to pick them up half the time.
And they're heavy buggers.
Oh God, they're terrible. You know, they're just they serve a purpose. You know, like when we did the ride through Chile and Argentina with those guys, we had 12 different bikes. You know, I was riding a XR650R Supermoto. No, regular wheels on that one. Frank had a KTM 625 SMC Supermoto. Everyone else was on a KTM 950 Adventurer or a BMW 1100, 1200 GSs. You know, all big bikes. And you guys understand, there's not one tool for every job. So the tight twisty stuff, the mountain stuff, the single tracks, we were having a ball. You know, the big open gravel, fast Argentine roads that run along the backside of the Andes for, you know, thousands of miles. Those guys on those 1200s had a cocktail, a cigar, and cruise control with heated grips, just giggling at us, freezing our asses off, miserable. You know.
That's one thing old Garcia always says about BMWs is when you've ridden a bike with heated grips, you never want to go back to a bike without heated grips. I've never had a bike with heated grips, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I've never wanted a car with heated seats till I bought an Outback with heated seats, and I'm like, how did I live with these without these? What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love the heated seats. Ollie is campaigning for us to get a car that has hot stone massage. He's like, I want, and I'm like, dude, like, because I made a mistake of saying to him of differentiating an E63 and an S65 by saying that the S65 had hot stone massage as well as like the biturbo V12. He didn't care about the biturbo V12. He was just interested in the hot stone massage. I'm going to change direction completely at the moment, Mark, and pick up on something you said ages ago. I said Mark, and neither of you know who I'm talking to, really, do you? Um, NASCAR. You said you'd been enjoying NASCAR. I nearly fell off my seat, and then I thought I'll save it for the pod. You said, and for what we have been discussing contemporary NASCAR, or at least in terms of this fellow Ross Chastain and the wall running, and in the recent, like in a computer game where you just put the car against the barrier, against the wall, took your hand off the steering wheel, Jesus, take the wheel, held the throttle flat and rode and he like crashed his way into like the chase or the playoff or whatever it is they call it now. So old Dale Jr. Then there was this race a couple of weekends ago where he punched Noah Gragson afterwards, which is a good name, Noah Gragson. It's like a character a name in a fantasy novel, isn't it? But either way, Gragson was the victim of this punch. And I don't know the ins and outs of it. I've not watched the film of it, but I did notice that Dale Jr. on his podcast said that he felt that there was a marketing opportunity here. That just like his father had grown into the Intimidator as a personality, Ross Chastain had the chance to grow into a personality. So here and now, Mark and Mark, what should Ross Chastain's nickname persona be?
Punchy.
Do you like him, or is he? Do you think he's too much?
You know what's funny, John? You talk about personalities in racing now. It used to be, especially in NASCAR, the personalities were just there. These men were giant personalities. That's why they did what they did. They were moonshine runners. They were mechanics. They were poor lower class, just forgotten about people that had nothing better to do than run cheap shit cars fast on backcountry roads. So those were the personalities. And now it's funny, we speak of essentially manufacturing a personality from these generally wealthy, not entitled, wealthy, privileged kids that get to go race now. This is no longer a poor man's sport, So it's odd to me that we're talking about building a personality around someone that really doesn't have one, other than the fact that he likes to fucking punch people off the track or into the wall, Like I think back to, my dad when he was young, like I've been watching IndyCar as well, Indy 500s to 28th, practice days in the last couple of days, these guys are out here running 229 miles an hour, around that oval. And, I remember my dad worked for AJ Foyt when he was young. They used to go out to Indy every year in the 50s and early 60s. And it's fun to watch those guys as well now, because I haven't watched Indy for years because they fucking ruined it,
Well,
and
I just want to say, for an European perspective on Indy, David Hobbs says about the Indy circuit, it's not an oval. It's basically the way you want to think about it as a European is it's like four corners at Spa joined up. Yeah, they're all left-handed, but
Yep.
each of them has its own personality. It's not that banked, and it's goddamn fast, but you're gonna have to slow down. That is the challenge of
Well, you get guys like, you get guys like Grosjean coming out of F1 that think, oh, I'm going to go kick everybody's ass. I think I think his practice time yesterday was somewhere 27th or 28th out of 34. It's like, yeah, dude, shit changes real fast at 230 miles an hour, nonstop in
Well,
traffic.
just not for nothing.
And that wall comes at you real quick.
It's not for nothing. Let the record show that I particularly do not rate Grosjean. I don't know what you think, Cammy. I don't want to slay anybody who can get to Formula One, but I personally thought Grosjean, let the record show that Grosjean for me sits with Jarno Trulli and Andrea De Cesaris right in the bottom echelon of Formula One drivers.
That's probably fair. He's quick, but and he would qualify quite quickly on occasion. But there would always be a fuck up. There would always be something that fucked up.
Agreed, Gammy. Exactly. He couldn't. The problem is now, I think, in racing, and I have kind of a problem with this across the board. It's become so tight and so close, and there's so much money involved that there's just no room for anybody that's not absolutely fucking world class with all the support they have and all the money in the world. It's very difficult for a grassroots person to come up in any racing series. I don't give a shit what it is. And that bugs me, and guys like him can go from F1 to anything they want. Well, Magnussen, for example, the Danish Haas guy, he went running LMP cars and kicked ass, and I think a guy like him, because he's with Haas, he's on a handicapped team essentially. What are you gonna do unless you really get lucky? You're gonna bring up people like Schumacher. You're gonna have Nico Hulkenberg come back, which I love him. I'd love to see that. But if you can't field a decent car or something close, sorry, I'm 100th of a second off, loser.
Yeah, F1 circuit does have a habit of making really quite quick guys look shit by dint of the fact that they've got a crap car and therefore they're running into teams, and
it always did. I mean, we just mentioned David Hobbs. He was somebody who looked at Formula One and was like, this is just not the environment. But for me, I want to make a living as a racing driver, not, die or fail in short order.
Dude, when you're next over, let me know and we'll go to the Goodwood members meeting, mate, because you'd love it.
Oh, I do. Going to Goodwood would be it's like my life's dream. If I
can get tickets, come on over, yeah.
The difference is, though, Gammy, I want to ship my Mustang over and do it in that.
That would be cool. Is it all back and sorted again now? Is the car all back and fixed? Because after that chap slid into it.
Yeah, no, it's perfect again, and it's shoved in a shipping container along with my '51 Ford F1 pickup Scott's truck. They're just sitting in a shipping container and in the LA desert, just waiting to get here. So, you know, but yeah, that's my logistics right now, Gamby. I'm trying to get my Cobra track car, the old Mustang, my F1 pickup, and I've got a couple early '60s. I got a 63 and a half Mercury Meteor, or excuse me, 63 and a half Mercury Comet wagon, and then I've got a 72 Comet. And then John and I have been working on the background of putting his 63 and a half Meteor, building it into our drag car. I've got the 428 Cobra Jet out of the 66 T-Bird. Him and I have been communicating about a big block top loader 4-speed. We've got the narrow 9-inch for it. I've got the Thunderbird seats, or the Mustang seats for it. So we're kind of roughed in, of building that thing. And I want to do that car. That's kind of my priority, honestly. That and my truck.
Dude, like, cool, because he keeps pussying out about when I try and close him into when it's going to be ready. He's like, meh, 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 meh. I don't know, like, don't hold me to a date.
He's got a wife and kid, dude. I understand.
Yeah, no, but it's still pussy ass.
I've got 15 dogs looking at me that I can just tell to shut the fuck up.
I'm really in a place where at the beginning of the year I was like, what do I want? If the slate was blank, if I had like as much money what would I want? And the thing I most want is my own cars and bikes working. That's why I am possessed to, and I've stopped trying to prioritize and do this one and that one. I've looked at, I just have a list and I just go down the list and knock things off, and I try and do it every day. And I'm at the point where, if I'm gonna I'm not gonna turn the screen because I'll fuck it up. But right next to me here is this goddamn Gixxer that I've had for a year now, and I've not ridden it because it was a drag bike, so it only has brake rotors on the front, and the rotors are loose. And I said to my tutor at City College, like, should I replace them? And he went, yeah, I would. Like, the last thing you want is them failing, especially if it doesn't have. So I'm like, you know what? I said to myself, I do that. The last time Garcia was over, he was like, you could just ride it like that. I mean, you don't ride it very hard. If you're just like first or second gear around here, you could do that for it. And I'm like, why don't I just do that? There's a level of urgency that I'm looking to build into what I do.
Those floating rotors are supposed to do that, Summers. It's fine. You never nose wheelie that thing anyway.
Well, exactly, right? Exactly.
Well, to drive your point though, home, Summers, you and I have talked a lot about this in the last couple years. We've both sort of motivated each other to narrow our focus a bit, because I'm similar to you. If I come across a $600, that Comet wagon, it's all there. It's a beautiful 63 and a half Comet wagon, red, white interior. It was $600. How do I not buy it?
And that's the thing. Through the pandemic, those things have all risen in value, and I don't think they're going to recede afterwards. They've all risen significantly in value.
Well, let's use your Bonneville your Grand Prix for example. I mean, dude, you couldn't really even barely justify paying what $3,300 for that car back in the day, and I'm like, you're fucking stupid. Buy that thing. Buy it now. Just hang out for a minute. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
What's that thing worth today? And you haven't done shit to it other than drive it and enjoy it.
But here's the thing with that car, particularly that 1963 Grand Prix that I have. That car particularly, right? It's that you don't see, at least not at shows or on the places that I look. You just don't see cars like that one, because that one had sat for 20 years before we got it, and it had just been taken off the road. So it's an original car that hasn't had paint and hasn't been restored and hasn't been customized. That's unusual now. So you see other 63 Grand Prix, but they're basket cases or they're cars that have been done. There's not that many that are in this middle of the road kind of state. And that, I don't know, that to me makes it because Ollie's not into it, not least because it's sat in the corner of the garage here for like decades, not taking up, so he's like, do the Camaro. You should do the Camaro. I've just got too many cars. That's literally the thing, is that I need
Now,
to just
Summers,
really
I
fight it.
kind of I like kind of where we're at though, and being in Mexico has somewhat made me thin my herd, and I've got those Toyota Chinooks. I sold one of those. I got to off the other one. I made good money on them.
Oh,
I'm fine with
just
it.
to hold on here, I was looking at a video where British people were getting all excitable about Chinooks. I don't know. I think there may be a market for them, in Europe for like campers. With people, you might have been ahead of the curve with that. When you were buying those, I was like, why the fuck are you buying these fucking things?
No, they're early Toyota trucks. Just the doors and cabs are worth a small fortune. Um, and again, I'll kind of go back to my point of like the Comet to the Meteor, dude. They were $500.
Yeah.
I got a storage yard.
Yeah.
Like I offed the last one for $2,500, so I spent $200 storing it and made $2,000 on it. That's fine. I can do that. But I think you and I are on the right path, Summers, where we're prioritizing a bit better what works. And Gammy, to kind of bring you into the conversation as well, I've been telling Summers, the Arrive and Drive program that we all talked about, and you being a team principal, Summers, I like all that. But the reality of that isn't really reality. It's a better reality to me, and a more grassroots enjoyable thing is you've got a Mustang track car, caged, safe. I've got one caged and safe. We've got the drag car, the gasser that we're going to build. I've got a couple other things to create somewhat of a little kind of Arrive and Drive thing, but in a different sense. Like, hey, Gammy, Dens, jump on a plane. I'll meet you in San Diego. We'll have both the cars ready. We're going to go to Tijuana for dinner, have a cocktail, and we're going to jump on the road and make it to San Felipe tonight. Which route you want to take? Who's driving first? Like, just you're basically on a 1,000-mile track through some of those beautiful terrain in the world. Oh, and at the end of it, there's a bunch of WR 450s sitting that we can go play on. So to kind of do a a grassroots, something different, Arrive and Drive gearhead trip through Mexico, LA and Mexico, because I know Europeans, everybody wants to play in LA and see the sights and do their thing and go to San Diego. I get all that, but for me, the happy place is the second I get over that border, it's like, woohoo, here we go,
I can see the appeal, man, definitely.
Well, and it's obtainable, Gammy. It's not, it's normal gas prices. We're not buying race fuel. There's no trailers involved. I mean, we could run a chase. I can bring the short bus with a car trailer behind it. We have a place to stay, extra parts, fuel, water, somewhere to lay down when John doesn't eat and he fucking is gonna pass out,
It's like you've met him before, bro.
I told Dana years ago, she was bitching at me because he fucking almost passed out one day. And I said, hey, Dana, he's an adult. If he doesn't eat, that shit's not on me. And I'm not his wife. Fucker needs to eat.
It's a fair point. He can't
He
handle
also needs to learn how to roll a joint that'll stay lit.
I gave up on that one a long time ago, dude.
Me too. And dumping my XRs. He's dumped all of them. That's why we love you, Summers. That's why we love you.
As I was preparing my little talk track here, I thought of standout memories of you, and my actual
quad into the electric fence is one of my favorites.
yeah. The quad that didn't launch straight and got me tangled in the electric fence. Yeah.
And then the whole bike became electrified, and you were grabbing the rear pull bar to pull it out, getting shocked every time.
Yeah, that was a long time ago now, but that was a funny thing. I'd never realized that electric fences pulsed like that before. I'd never actually been. I mean, I was shocked enough that day for the rest of my life, but I'd never been shocked by an electric fence prior to that day.
Mm.
So I'm going to change the subject. I visited. I was invited as a journalist, so perhaps it's my duty as since I was invited on this PR day as a journalist, I felt in this public forum it was my duty to talk about the fact that I was invited to the opening of ZF, as in ZF Transmissions, as in the people who built the transaxle for the Ford GT40 and build transmissions now.
The transmission in my Ford F-250, my favorite shifting transmission on earth, aside from my top loader 4-speed in the Mustang. John, I've got 375,000 miles in that transmission. It's never been apart. It's never had a clutch in it. And you know I'm not nice to anything. I don't know how.
Yeah, well, let that underscore what I said to the ZF people was exactly that. But what emerged was a different picture. You see, it was billed as the launch of their fly-by-wire steering.
Interesting.
Now that means more than when I turn the steering wheel, there's no direct. The whole disappearance of the steering column means we can engineer the car in a completely different way. And the videos that they had, because you think of it, there's no physical connection now needed between the wheels. So not only can the wheels swivel far more than a mechanical steering rack would allow them, allowing crazy parallel parking and things like that, but also inside the cabin, the video they had showed the steering wheel folding itself up and sinking into the dashboard as the car takes, as you're on the freeway and the car's driving itself. So that was how they positioned it up. There was a simulation, which I didn't do because the Wall Street journalist girl did it, and I was stood next to her, and she was like, "Oh, I feel sick," and I was like, "That is everything I need to know about that simulation. Like, thank you." I always felt that the Wall Street Journal was accurate and direct, and you've just helped me with that. But then there was a panel, right? And the panel was really interesting because the first question the moderator asked was about getting staff and hiring staff, and how the fact that, so it was clearly no coincidence that this electronic product was at the same time as this office was being opened in Silicon Valley. And the long and short is that the way in which ZF are going to scale within the space is based upon whether or not they can get the right staff. Because literally, they used to make gears like cogs, and now they're simply not anymore. Now and what was interesting to me was the guy I talked most extensively with was a German business guy, and he said he'd come from, it was some 3-letter acronym, I can't remember the name of it, but they were a software house basically, and ZF bought that software house outright. So they bought the software house outright, and then the guy that I was talking to, who was like the sales director, VP kind of guy, he was the guy who they had put so in other words, what that said to me was that this company has completely pivoted from what they were to what they are now. Your thoughts, Mark Gammy?
Well, I mean, look, I've been driving computer game wheel sims for a while, and the feel on that has improved immeasurably with force feedback and rumble and all that sort of stuff. And they're able to simulate surface changes really well. And I'm not even playing on one of the $2 or $3 grand sort of Fantech wheels with the full sort of geared motors and stuff, but belt drives and stuff. But they are amazing at doing it. So it doesn't hugely surprise me that would be the next thing coming. Because from an engineering standpoint, it makes a huge amount of sense. And you didn't mention security. Like, it's difficult to nick a car if there's no steering wheel gone into the dashboard. So there's that sort of thing is another huge advantage. But one wonders whether or not it is ultimately going to be a dilution for most people of the driving experience, not least, but also feel will inevitably go. But then on the other end, we said that with non-manual racks with electronic steering, and it's come back and is better and better and better and better. So I don't know. It's inevitable.
Gammy, what do you use for a wheel and a setup? Because I just got into the Gran Turismo this last year, and I've got just a one of their PlayStation, I think a Logitech wheel, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite
So
impressed with how, like you said, the feedback, the terrain, the way it's pretty shocking how good it is from somebody like you or my perspective. I'm surprised, and like you said, it's not a $2,000 wheel; it's a $300 wheel.
yeah, so I mean, but my buddy's, my boss's son, like, is a journalist for Canadian Hockey Magazine, and he also does sim racing. It might be his other son. I don't misspeak, but anyway, he bought a Fantech set of pedals and a Fantech wheel and a whole bunch of stuff. And he does iRacing, so subscribes to it and then goes on there and does all the coursing. I think he's like he's not. I don't think he's in the Premier Division, whatever the ranking system is, but he's pretty high up. He's racing races against like NASCAR drivers and stuff. And he reckons you can, for like, for a middling, PC Gamer recommended their wheels of 2023 recently, and for about 350 to $500, you can get a really sexy wheel. And then don't get me wrong, that's just the steering wheel, and then you'll buy the pedals and you buy the other bits separately. But because the pedals I've got no resistance in any of them, so they're not properly sprung. Whereas the later ones have proper sort of progressive spring resistance in the brake pedal, and it changes based upon the surface and all that sort of stuff. So you can really go to the nth degree with it. But if you pair that up, especially on a PlayStation 5, with their new VR headset, the VR2 one, for stationary gaming, fucking amazing.
Yeah, Gim, it's funny. You say it about the pedals. The pedals are my biggest disappointment, and I bought the stick shift as well. I don't even use it. I just use the paddle shifter because the pedals, the clutch, and the stick shift feel so unnatural that I don't like using them.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And that's I haven't really been doing much sim racing for a while, but when I get back into it, and I'm trying to get, my buddy's got Gran Turismo 7 and the PS5, and it's one of those ones I've been holding off on VR for a while. And when the VR2 headset arrives and I see some full reviews in it, it looks pretty awesome. And for that sort of game, me and my mate Steve did a few years ago I think it was on the previous PlayStation, and GT5 or 6, did the full 24 hours of Le Mans when you were able to do it. Did like 3 or 4 hours, saved it, and then you could come out. But then as long as you didn't play any other game in the game, you could then go back in and resume it. And it was fucking brilliant. You were doing like 8 laps before the tires are off, and you've got to be so fucking careful, because if you're not, you've got to go on like ultra hards anyway, because otherwise you only do about 2 laps. So all that tire management was great. And he had the first like 8 hours was in the rain. So so that being able to do that sort of simulation is just great fun. And I love the idea that potentially on a digital platform, we, for example, if we all had the same PlayStation, we could like log in at 2 or 3 hour stints and take over from each other and race that way. So in iRacing, that's incredible.
Gammy, I'd love to do that. I'd love to race with you guys. That'd be really fun. Or if we can just do races together as well, because we finally have Starlink down here. So I'll be back up and running next week. And I actually finally have real Wi-Fi down here. It's hysterical. It's funny to have it here when I can't get it in LA.
Yeah, but no, dude, that would be cool. And I mean, I know the iRacing stuff has the ability to do that sort of team-based event, because they screen them, that you can watch them streaming on YouTube and Twitch.
I'm so enamored by the online thing now, because I've got a PS4, and that was so impressive to me when I initially got it. I mean, the tracks, like to go run, Sears Point, or to go run Laguna Seca, or go run tracks I've actually run before, I can see how it's a legitimate way to train without jumping in a car to go do it. It's pretty incredible to know where to set up and where your braking zones are and where the apex is, and to learn all that. Like, I really wanted to go jump in my Cobra after that and go, okay, does it feel the same? Does it help? But I know it helps,
Yeah, for lines and braking points and all that sort of stuff, it's awesome. And yeah, it's getting better. I mean, I haven't done the latest gen stuff, so I'm a little bit out of date on what the simulation stuff. But I did the last one of the VR rally ones on my chum's Oculus setup a while back, and you know, apart from a little bit of motion sickness, because you still get, which is why I've been waiting, because I want a higher res screen so that you lose that shit. But apart from that, yeah, exactly. And the peripheral vision stuff, I sort of felt a bit like I was moving after I'd finished the race. But on the other hand, what I will say about it, if you accept that, you know, by the time I buy in, that technology issue won't be an issue. The actual simulation of the racing was absolutely brilliant. The sensation of speed through the trees when you're doing a proper sort of full-on Welsh rally stage kind of thing in VR, and they're like 5 minutes long. It's not a long thing, but god damn, it's fucking intense because you know you're playing it on like no aids, everything off, and the guy's barking the goddamn instructions at you. It's cool. It's really well.
The rally part of it I've tried. It's hard, dude. It's no joke, you know. And I know how to drive
yeah.
sideways on dirt. I'm real comfortable with shit loose under me, you know. John always laughed about that. You know, he's like, I've never been comfortable with something loose under me. And Mark, you seem like you're not comfortable unless your shit's loose under you. You know. You know, Summers, what's the status of your SN95 right now? Is that thing kind of ready to go?
Yeah, with the proviso that so what I've been trying to do with that car is it's you remember Jason, it's at his place at the moment.
Okay.
And we had been shaping to do Wednesday night drags with him. We'd planned to do that at the beginning of the year. Yeah. And so that's a two-stage process, right? One is a Wednesday night that he and I are free. And then the week before that, I have to go and test the car in a meaningful way, right? And I know enough now to know that I'm not going to, he and I aren't going to take Wednesday to drive all the way up to the circuit to find that it, you know, it has some problems straight away. So, and it's not enough for me to go out in the car and just drive it around a little bit. You know, you need to go out and do some wide open throttle running in it before I'm going to take it to a track. So it's like a 2-day process, and one way and another between, you know, I've been over there and done the testing, and then we planned to go and then didn't. And then there's been some, you know, I guess, personal stuff happened to Jason's wife. And that meant that you know, so it's just, we just failed to do anything constructive. But the real shtick with that car is it I dare say I could fiddle around with it and make it run better and make more power, but it fundamentally isn't that fast in a straight line.
No.
And that I need to sort of fix that. And that becomes about, you know, how much power should it have and how much power do I want it to have? And that's about, you know, there was a time where I was like, I want to spend $10,000 and put a 500 horse Ford Motorsport small block in it. But now I'm like, why? I'm never going to go. I don't want to go out to Bonneville and do 200 miles an hour in it. And that was my original thought, but I'm just too old and afraid of those high speeds now. So, you know, yeah, so it's over at Jason's place. And, you know, and I'm frustrated by my own lack of mechanical skill with it, if I'm candid. You know, the dipstick keeps falling out. Between us, we've had 3 tries to keep the dipstick holder in the side of the block, and we've failed. You know, and it's just like, you know, it's just really, you know, as my wife said the other day, you're a historian, not a mechanic, and that seems to be.
We all have our strong points, Summers. So
Hey, answer me this: you sent me the link to the Fast Johnnie Harley. Tell me what was appealing about that.
I don't know, dude. You know what's funny, man? I've been looking at a couple of the bikes Harley has done lately, and I'm impressed by them. I like where they're going. You know, I never liked the V-Rod. You know, that was a Porsche, you know, partnership that I get why they did it, but it just never did a thing for me, you know. And let's face it, you go ride one of those things, they're not that fun to ride, you know. I mean, I want to get on my, you know, 20-year-old supermoto and go slide through shit. You know, it's more fun. That being said, though, I've seen some guys down here because we get a lot of adventure guys down here, and I've seen a couple of those Harleys set up, and I was really impressed by them. Just the looks alone on that thing, there's something about it that just made me go, ooh, okay, I'll give you a shot, you know? And I know they're getting a little better as far as technology goes, and I know they're better to ride, you know? They're probably still not as good as a Africa Twin or, something along those lines. It's a little too streety for me down here, to be honest. But there's something intriguing about it, man. It's nice to see Harley go down a different path, because if they don't, they're fucked. They're done. Again, they've been saved by World War I and World War II, and every doctor in the '90s and attorney that was buying them, they saved them. When I worked for them there at Golden Gate Harley, and they need to do something to be relevant and to keep up with this thing, and I think they are.
I couldn't believe when I was in France over the summer with my family, and I couldn't believe the way sports bikes are just extinct. They're just gone.
The
And
leader sport bike just out the window.
On the streets of Paris, no sports bikes at all. In the Loire Valley, no sports bike. When we went to Le Mans for the 24-hour bike race, the fields were full, right?
Sure.
But it's so it's not like they've disappeared completely, but the people at that event are all, our age.
Well, I think Summers, I think it's the crowd. It's you who has a garage full of old Gixxers and CBRs and weird shit that he doesn't ride. But with a couple of bucks, you're going to go buy that Harley or an adventure bike or something that's a little more easy to ride and upright and comfortable and has saddlebags. And that's what you're going to ride to the event. That's why. That's what you're going to ride through downtown, or whether it's London or Paris or San Francisco. That's going to be your daily real quick if you got a bunch of 20-plus-year-old leader bikes sitting in your garage.
Yeah.
It's called getting older.
Yeah, no, well, I've even found that I've that I've three that I've been riding a lot recently. The Zuma, when it'll run, the K5, because it's just so comfy in comparison, and the fueling just works properly, and and the other one I've been riding plenty is the Ducati, because it really around town, like second and third gear, that's all you need. It's just like absolutely lovely around town. And
it's short shift happy place, dude. That's why I like the XR650R, the Supermotos, dude. I just love that short shift grunt, just front wheel comes up every time you just roll on it a little bit, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. I don't want to have to wrap something up to 15,000 RPM, to get it to do what I want it to do. That's why I like diesels. Hang a turbo off it makes 1,100 pounds of torque at 2,000 RPM.
Mark Gammy, you sent me pictures of this Alpine Beta, this Lancia 037 resto mod. So, Mark, this is a Group B rally car.
No. It's the Alpine Beta thing is a Renault 5 Turbo electric.
Ooh, really?
It looks just like a modernized version of the Renault 5 Turbo, but they're making it as a mass market electric hatch, as far as I understand it. Let me find a picture of it for you. I thought I sent you a picture of it.
You know what? No, I elided it in my mind with because these people have done a replica 037, haven't they? Like a modernized 037. So in my mind, it was saying
the video
modernized rendering, like of 80s car. And I'm not sure what I think of it. I'm like, I definitely don't want one.
You know what's funny, Summers? I'm very, as a mechanical guy, I'm very enamored by the electric thing, just the amount of horsepower it makes, that ridiculous fucking Tesla plaid shit or whatever else you get in. The problem is, they're just kind of soulless. I can't watch, okay, we talked about me I'm into NASCAR a little more now. I'm into Indy a little more. Now, mind you, I like NASCAR a lot because they fucking crash a lot and drive like a bunch of fucking animals. I love that. That's why I like it, and that's why I got back into it. Everybody likes a car crash, Summers.
But the EVs, right? EVs are soulless, and you can tell that. We did for my class just a couple of weeks ago. The one of the guys in the class has a Taycan Turbo S. So he was bringing his Taycan Turbo S in, and the class were going to look at it. So I said, did the class want to look at one of my Mustangs as a contrast? So my bullet car sat on campus as a comparison talking point with this Taycan Turbo S just a couple of weeks ago. I got a photo of nobody looking at the Taycan and everyone looking under the hood of the Mustang.
I love it.
Well, the point of this Alpine, give that. Yeah, the point of it is that it's super light. It's 220 horsepower, and the whole thing that they're going for is steering, feel, excitement, and handling perfection. Allegedly,
actual drivability.
But moving towards lightweight is a great goal, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, look, and don't get me wrong, yeah, it ain't a long distance hauler. It's going to have like a couple hundred miles of range. But like, you know, if you know, or maybe a bit more, who knows? But if they're super light, then it can have a bit more.
But California has already said no more diesel trucks after 2040 because it prompted me to want to buy an 18-wheeler. And I thought it was a great idea, and sent Gammy this Freightliner, and all he could do was talk about drivers jerking off in the sleeper. And what amused me about it was I showed that image to my class, and that was the first thing they said as well. So,
how many holes have you had in the back of your truck?
How many notches are on the headboard?
Yeah. I was like all excited about the fact that I'd found this Freightliner that had done 2.5 million miles, and Gary was like, "Yeah, how many like crack holes in the sleeper?" Yeah, thanks, Mark.
That's funny you say that, John, because I'm actually working with my attorney here in town where I'm trying to figure out transportation. I need to get these vintage cars down here. I've got shipping containers full of aircraft parts and tools and machinery and stuff I need to get down here to my shop. So him and I have been speaking of, I've been looking at a Freightliner. A buddy's got one. It's 12 grand. It's got a measly 700,000 miles on it.
A spring chicken.
Oh, it's not. He bought it new, took great care of it. So we're looking at shipping container chassis, and then I'm working on logistics to basically have that thing running back and forth between LA and Cabo.
Now let's move from the lowest of the low to one of the lowest of the low there to pay tribute to so my next little topic on my talk track here is to pay tribute to somebody, Mark Gammy, who Mark Newton and I both met independently, and a bloke who wouldn't really crow himself up at all, and that is Steve. I'm going to tell you a story about Steve Newton. Did you know at Pebble Beach last year there was a Ford Model A class? And in that Ford Model A class, there was a car which I'm no expert on hot rod Model A's, but in the hot rod Model A class, there was one car which, just reading about the thumbnail on them, it was obvious that that was going to be the best car in the class. Steve Beck prepared that car for Pebble Beach. And I was like, wow, Steve Beck, Model A Ford. My other Steve Beck story was we were on the lawn at Pebble one time doing their like, let's decide we were going to talk about like, does anybody know anything about any of the cars around here kind of thing. And we talked about this Cobra that was the development mule for the big block car. And Steve had a million little things that it had been done, and I'd never seen him so. It was as if like a book had opened and all the knowledge just flowed out. You know, he just
his happy place, John.
yeah, very much so.
100%. It's funny. I just talked to his front office guy Tim the other day about Bill Thomas, the transmission guy, the top loader guy, and I had to call him and get reminded who it was. But he said Steve's doing restorations now. That's his primary thing. That's all he's doing. He's got two great kids working on the BMW side of things, and he's kind of shut the gate, and he's doing a 66 GT350 that's an early number car right now that is just gorgeous car this guy's had for 30
So,
years.
Darren, just to give you some
And so
perspective,
he's kind
the
of going
front
down.
office business he has is late model BMW repairs. It's in Santa Monica, isn't it? His shop.
Venice, technically.
But then,
Venice, well,
then
Culver
the back
City,
of
actually.
office is all of this restoration stuff, and I guess I hadn't realised just what dyed in the wool Ford guy he was, because I knew about the BMW stuff. So it's really interesting.
Oh, well, you walk back in that Quonset hut with Herbie Hancock's original Cobra that he bought when he went platinum on his first album. He went and bought himself that 64 early number, still got AC badges on it. I think it's car number 6.
Wow.
Sitting in that corner of that shop. His original Model Ts, Model As, his 32s, all from high school. Shit, the last time I was there, I think there was 3. I think there was 1 big block Cobra, car number 4 Cobra, small block AC car, Herbie's car. I mean, the stuff in that back shop is just world class, you know? And it just sits back there in that 40s Quonset hut like nothing special, you know? So yeah, he is a wealth of knowledge and a wonderful human. I love that guy. He's so helpful and willing to just impart knowledge and educate people. I just love it. I'm glad you got Summers. I'm glad you have a relationship with him outside of me in LA. You know, that's really neat.
Yeah, no, I do the Pebble Beach dosing thing with him, and he's been on the team for ages, and his partner, she's on the team as well, and you know, I was going to say the other thing on my little talk track was we did a little like afternoon thing for the docents, like at one of the docents' houses, and it's a really cool kind of warm up because like one guy arrived on a vintage Indian, and you know another guy's got a brand new top of the range Genesis, and the guy whose house we were at, I mean, he's really interesting actually. His name is Mike Crocetti, and he does these bikes that he calls Crocetti Speciales, but they're basically like custom built little bikes, the kind of thing that people put around their house rather than that you actually ride. Everything is like delicate and he has a definite aesthetic. So whether it's a Yamaha or a Honda or a Ducati that he's done, it has a certain kind of really subtle, cool look for it. He also he was in the 70s and 80s. He was like back to back historic Formula Ford or Formula V champion for like years at a time, like 5 years at a time or something like that. Like when I was in his study, I was blown away by what a successful guy he was. So we were at his house, and old Steve Beck turns up in a Lotus Super 7 with the same engine as my dad's Morgan. My dad's Morgan had the Cortina 1500 motor, like GT on it. So it's that, and it's that on the carbs, and he's towed it up, and he's using that for Pebble Weekend. And I thought, Steve Beck, you absolute legend.
I mean, the bottom line is he's still just an OG mechanic. You know, he's a mechanic, period. That's what he does. That's what he knows. I mean, he's a pretty damn special one, but he'll be the first to tell you, I'm just a mechanic, dude. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, that is the truth. Mark Newton, a topic. This is like what they used to say when you were a historian. They give you a topic and then they just ask you to discuss it. Here's the topic heading: Tundras I have known.
I can't believe you have not owned one yet. Seriously. As much as you and I had fun in that truck and how much you loved it going to Bonneville and playing around out there where the atomic bomb left and those back roads, man, I just sold my other one down here. Oh.
So what,
that's
the white 2-wheel drive that you just sold?
No, 4-wheel drive, king suspension, limited slip diffs. Like,
oh, that one that had the American racing wheels on it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, Summers, that is the identical truck to the green one I bought new that you and I were in at Bonneville so many years ago. It's an 03 TRD or a 03 SR5, you know, extended cab, 4-wheel drive. And I just sold that thing with, I think, 265,000 very hard miles on it.
Wow.
And, but you know, I mean, you know what's funny, John? I think I paid $9,000 for that thing, dude. I drove it for over 140,000 miles over 7-8 years, and I just got $7,700 for it.
Wow.
I mean, how do you go wrong? You know, other than they're underbraked, they don't really haul anything, but my God, they're capable. You know, and I love them. And the motors are bulletproof, the transmissions are bulletproof. They're not a head gasket blower like all the V6 Toyotas, you know. And it gets the same mileage as the 4-cylinder, the V6, plus that V8, dude. I mean, that's the Lexus V8. You know, they you know, when I worked for Toyota Summers, that's when the Lexus and Toyota ski boats came out. That's when they came up with that 4-liter Lexus motor that they put in all the ski boats, the Lexuses, the pickups. You know, they use that motor for all kinds of stuff. And, you know, they're just bulletproof. I can't believe what I can do to those things. I can't believe it. You know,
I remember
I think it,
you had that white 2-wheel drive one in LA about 10 years ago, and in the wet, Mark Gammy, this would be on these wide LA streets when it rained. Mark would get the tail out and then would just hold the tail out. And this is in a column shift pickup truck. So on an on ramp, you just get the tail out on the on ramp and then go all the way down the on ramp with it sideways. Or if you like hoofed it, you could get it so it was like a rally car where it fishtail all the way down the. There's no weight in the back of them. They're really really a remarkable thing.
little moisture and a limited slip or a posi rear end in those things makes them real lively.
What was the one you picked us up in from Vegas?
I think that was my green Tundra, that early Tundra. I think that was it. Yeah. And that was that's funny, Gammy. That's the only vehicle I've ever purchased new. I bought that thing brand new in Napa, 03 Tundra 4-wheel drive, and I kept it for a year and a half, and I sold it for damn near what I bought it for because I couldn't stomach the payments, and I never bought anything new again. No, excuse me. I bought a new Harley in '96. That's right. And that was it. Everything else is, and you can't really justify buying those things new. Go buy a $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 4-wheel drive Tundra nowadays with 200,000 on it. Who gives a
That's
shit?
interesting.
Mileage is irrelevant.
No, I think that's an interesting point. I was just thinking, which vehicles have I ever actually bought new? And it's the CBR 600RR, and I bought a Seat Leon Cupra R new as well.
Ooh, and that's it.
Everything else has been like secondhand or PX'd or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think considering what the three of us respectively do to vehicles, it's probably a wise thing.
I mean, I look after them. They get hard worn, but I look after them. They get everything they need.
I agree with you on that one.
I have a colleague at the Black Hawk, and he says about my cars, they always look like they've really been driven.
Well loved, my friend. Well loved.
All right, let's move on to the little quick fire phase here to see us out. What's your favorite car of the moment?
Favorite car at the moment? Not that I own any car.
Yeah, just what you just like. If I ask you your favorite car, you'd have like some like special Ferrari or something like that, right? If I say favorite car at the moment, I'm saying just what's on your mind at the moment. Just pull it out of the arse. It can be a banger on Craigslist or something that you're dreaming about, or just anything.
I gotta say my Cobra track car, because it's in the forefront of my mind as something that I have: the engine, the transmission, the car. It's so close to being running and drivable, and I can get it here on the next trip, most likely. That's that one. The thing that I can have the most fun with that I own that's obtainable, you know, that I have every parts for, that's the forefront of my mind right now. You know?
Nice.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. There's nothing fancy that impresses me. You know that, Summers. Give me an old fucking beater, you know, stick shift car with a posi rear end, and I'm happy.
Mark, do you have a favorite car at the moment?
I've been looking on the basis that if we're going to move to the south of France, if this ever happens, but I'm still the end goal is still in play. Then we're going to need some sort of cross-continent bruiser to like put luggage and potentially dogs and shit like that in the back in, and then do like, you know, Pyrenees to, you know, back home to Plymouth or whatever in a day kind of trips. So for that sort of thing, it's generally German. So I've been looking at some quite sexy E63s, but also some quite nice M5s and M6s. You get to the M6s, and I'm not like keen, but then you get to the M6 Grand Sport thing, that or the Grand Coupe, you know, one that was the 4-door version of the 2-door version of the, I don't know, but actually looks quite good. That they actually look really good.
Those are sexy.
I'm a bit confused with the
sexy
etymology,
4-door, dude.
Yeah, they are really nice, and you can get them for like not unreasonable amounts of money. I could basically trade the M2 for one of those.
No kidding.
I've been looking at E63s, and I'm here to tell you, I think the crossover year is 2011, because that's when they went from the normally aspirated 6.2 M156, which arguably they reckon, some journalists reckon, is the greatest V8 ever put in a street car, from that engine to the turbo V8, right? So the turbo V8 made more. It was a V8 as well. It had two turbos. It was a 5.5, so it made more power, but it doesn't have the character, they reckon, of the earlier car. And
Give me a naturally aspirated car any day of the week, dude.
Yeah, you are already struggling to find a modest mileage one though, because they are like old now. So yeah, I'm still on the look, and if I can expand on the basis, I would want a right hooker probably.
you are if you're going to daily it and pack the miles on. I agree.
Yeah, it's on the basis that I want a right hooker one. It expands the available market to all of Europe.
What was the first car you drove?
First car I can remember driving was about a 60. So this was in Marin County at my Dr. George Mowen's house up on the mountain. And Doc was a crazy doctor that was a heavy drinker and had a giant 600-acre ranch in Marin County on the hill. And he had a mid-60s international, no. Was it an international? No, it was a Power Wagon. Mid-60s, early 60s Dodge Power Wagon, 4-door, old fire truck, 4-wheel drive, long bed, stick shift, with no doors on it, no seat belts, 2 bench seats, you know, no power steering, no nothing. So myself and his kids, Rex and Max, my brother Steve, we'd all jump in that thing. And between the 3 or 4 of us, we could muscle it around the mountains of Marin County and not kill ourselves in it. How we didn't roll it down a hillside, I don't know. And of course, our dads didn't give 2 shits. Seatbelts? Didn't have doors. No one cared. Yeah, they were building houses. They were building a house for Doc out there to replicate a train car. He was a weird one. He also owned Disney's old railroad on that property. The old original Disney mini railroad is on that property, completely set up. It's Summers. I'll have to take you out there one day when I get to come up there sometime. It's a special place.
Yeah,
But that's the earliest vehicle I can remember, other than my dad's '66 Ford F-250 that I still have. You know, the utility truck. I still own that. First car we bought.
I was going to say, you mentioned your dad. I had a separate topic here which we sort of jumped over, but let's come back to it. Tell us about your dad's 44. Why was that such a special car?
Dude, he built. So they were Marin County guys. My dad was the mechanical side of things, old drag race family, and his brother Art was the paint side of things, and interior guy. And they didn't have any money, so they built everything out of the gate. And my dad was born in 37. When he was about 15, 16, he found this 40 Ford Coupe that was, they weren't worth anything, 5 years after they came out. No one wanted those things, So he had a 40 Ford business coupe, and it was a deluxe, so it had the Chevron taillights and little windows, and they were just trying to drag race everything, and it was one of the smallest, lightest cars they could get their hands on. And he put had a blown early Cadillac motor in it with a LaSalle trans, built rear end in it, and baby moons, and it was black on black, of course. And he drag raced that car around Marin County for years. It was a pretty famous little car. And at the little diner one night, guy pulls up. This is 1956. Pulls up in a baby blue, brand new '56 Ford pickup, and loved the car so much and watched my dad race it that night that he said, "Hey, I'll give you this brand new pickup for that 40 coupe." My dad was like, "Oh, hell yeah. I can build another one of these. I can't afford a new pickup." So that car got traded for that blue '56 pickup. And I'm pretty sure that car's still floating around Marin County. I'd love to find it someday. Yeah, I'd love to find it. There's something about, pardon me, Big Rig, Mexico. There's something about those 3940 Fords that they're just special to me. I don't know. They're one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen, and I want one.
So a word on that business coupe body style. What we're saying here, Mark Gammy, and I always found this fascinating because I was a sales guy. You're a sales guy. The business coupe body style was aimed at salespeople. So not only was the thing cheap to buy, but it had enough stuff in space in the back of it for you as a traveling salesman to carry your stuff. But what that also meant was that your samples, but what that also meant was that you could sleep in the car and didn't need to pay for the motel.
Yep.
And what that meant for the hot rodder was that if you jacked up the back a little, not only was the thing light, as Mark alluded to, but if you jacked up the back a little, it really looked
Well, in that
great
car,
shape.
John, the business coupes had no rear seat in them. They had two flip-down jump seats on each side under the little rear windows that flipped down. So you're right. That was just a big open area in the back with two little flip-down jump seats. That's all it was. And my dad had no money, so that not only was his drag car, that was their hunting car, their fishing car. That car was for everything. They drove that car to the tip of Mexico to go fishing. That's why I ended up here. Those guys were fishing down here as young guys because it was cheap. Beers were cheap, fish are free, gas is cheap in Mexico. You got a reliable Ford. The Fords are all over Mexico. It's the place to be in one. You didn't necessarily have a pickup and a drag car. You had one car.
What's your favorite hot rod?
My favorite?
Hmm.
I think
If
that's
it's
it.
easier for you, what's your favorite hot rod at the moment?
I think it'd still be a built 40 coupe. I still think that's, I love the 32s. I love Model A's that are built. I love 50s stuff. But there's something about that. There's something about that era. Those those were special cars to me. I don't know. There's something about those 3940 Fords, and I don't care if it's a sedan, a coupe. I don't care. They have that front end that is the front end to have. It's unmistakable when it's coming at you.
What's the most recent vehicle that you've bought?
The short bus, the short bus. That's the
What's the
most
most recent repair that you did?
Yesterday was diagnosing my pharmacist's 2008 Mustang transmission issue and air conditioning issue. It ate an air compressor clutch, and the transmission needs a service.
Which leads me on to my next question. What car or part were you last surfing for?
Part. Um, for my Harley, the 67 FL Berkeley police bike I just brought down, I am looking for the suicide shift clutch lever. And that's not something you can find here.
Talk to me about these Thunderbirds that you keep sending me pictures of, these 80s Thunderbirds.
Dude, John, you and I talk about kind of what, again, if we're going to keep this hobby alive, we need to be intelligent about this. So, and, to keep yourself married, you need to also be intelligent about it. Buying the right vehicles that are not only enjoyable, interesting, rebuildable, parts are available, but they're going to be worth more down the road. I'm not going to just dump my time and energy into something that isn't worth anything when I'm done with it. The rarity of them, the uniqueness of them. When that car came out, Summers, that was a manual transmission, turbo, 4-cylinder, rear-wheel drive. That was an anomaly. No one wanted those cars. So to me, Ford was working with Yamaha on a lot of those engines. By the way, I don't know if you guys are familiar with how many engines Yamaha has actually built for many different car makers, from Toyota to Ford to Mazda. It's pretty incredible. All the good motors.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pause here and pay tribute to a black Ford Mondeo ST24 with a head that was worked over by Yamaha, a Duratec V6. That car would run at 125 miles an hour with 170,000 miles on it and no oil in it. It was fucking awesome.
Yep. There are other the way Yamaha does that stuff. Again, that's why I have WRs here. That's why everyone uses the outboard motors here. You use what's good and survives. So yeah, those Thunderbirds I'm sending you, I just, from an investment perspective, they're interesting to me. They're unique. So a good complete, SHO, turbo Thunderbird that's all there for $1,500. You tell me that thing's not going to be a collector's item in 5-10 years? How? You know, how? How is it not?
The other one, which is lurking in the same place there, is the Lincoln Mark 8. Like a 90s Lincoln Mark 8, like the right era Lincoln, 90s Lincoln Mark 8, because it has the same 32 valve engine as the Mustang Cobra. It's like a Mustang Cobra for like pennies on the dollar.
And no one do you follow Tony Angelo from the Motor Trend
Oh,
channel?
I know him.
Work with
Yeah,
Kenny.
love that guy. Yeah.
Oh, have you seen the one he's been playing around with, swinging a turbo off it?
No, no.
Oh, dude, no, you need to go follow him. He's got one he's been playing around with for the
Is
last
it?
probably
Are
6.
they rear wheel drive or front wheel drive?
They're rear wheel drive, dude. It's a fucking Mustang with a 32 valve Cobra motor that he swung a fucking hairdryer off of it, and now he's managed to push the intake. I think he blew the intake off it the other day on the dyno. I think he's pushed the heads off it a couple times, but he's like, bang for your buck. He's like, this thing is hard to beat, guys. I think he paid a couple $1,000 for it.
Yeah.
And it was an old man, good, well-serviced, low-mile runner. Come on. What's that Cobra worth with that motor in it? You can't even find one.
Oh, and they've fully entered the realms of collector cars, the SM Mustangs
Yeah,
now.
yeah, 100%. And that's a great example. Summers, that falls right in, and that's why somebody like Tony Angelo picks it. Like, again, give me a platform that's relatively reliable, unique, and works well, that I can work with. That's all I'm asking for. I don't really care what it is. At this point, it's well, that's like for me, going to work for Acura when I was 18 years old at a dealer, and then Toyota and Honda and Subaru and all that. I have a heavy appreciation for, early MR2s, Corolla GTSs, early Celicas. The first Toyota Supra Turbo I drove in 1988 or 89, I couldn't believe what that car was capable of. That's the first turbo car I'd ever driven. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Jesus criminy. I remember a guy coming in with that thing under warranty going, hey, it's got kind of a wicked wind noise at about 110, 120. So I told him, I said, well, we should probably go test drive it and duplicate that wind noise so I can fix it. You know? And we jumped in that thing. I'm 19 years old, down Highway 101 headed for Petaluma, at 120. Like, yep, there's the wind noise. I just, and those cars, those 2JZ turbo, super, you can't touch them. Can't find one. And if you do, they're $100,000. It's like buying an R34 Skyline or something. They're just unobtainable.
Well, I think we're just at the bottom of the increase in interest and appreciation and the value of stuff like Supras and Skylines. I mean, it doesn't take a crystal ball to see that the younger people are obsessed by them. I mean, I found an R. On Cars and Bids there was an R33. Yeah, an R33. And it's a V-spec car and it's nice enough. And I think the bid was at 40. And I'm like, wow, if that was at 140, I wouldn't be surprised. And, it's not there yet, but you can really see the time when it will be there. And I'm sure it will get there because all the young uns love the Skylines. Guys, on that note, I just want to say thank you both for your time, and I'll see you next time.
Summers, it was a pleasure. Gammy, damn good to see you and talk to you, buddy. Let's plan on a little Mexico road race trip in this next year or two, my friend.
Yeah, no, that'd be wicked, man. I'm well up for that.
All right, gentlemen, enjoy the day.
Ciao.
Cheers.